Emma, this new app, talk me through. What is it?
Well, I think it's yeah. I sound like I'm marketing it. I'm not. I'm endorsing it and I'm supporting it. But it's an essential part of being a student and being safe. I think these days, the landscape's changed. It's well publicised, unfortunately, what the tragedy that happened to us. But I do know that the fears that I had and have are shared by parents across the land when their beloved children go off to university for the first time. They're as young as 18, and they still feel like children. Obviously, they're young adults, but they feel like children, and it's the first step for many of them to live independently. And one of your biggest fears is how safe they're going to be. And quite frankly, I'm surprised that something like this isn't around already. I think I had a quick look, there are lots of variations of things you can access, but I think this one is, it's designed by students, it's created and inputted by students, and it's student friendly, it's real time, it's of its time. And how we communicate, how we learn, how we socialize is so different that I think this is, from what I've seen, the student safety app is the first piece, is the first tool to help reduce some of those risks that there are. I would say in cities, it's not just cities, is it? It's anywhere. Anyone can face risks wherever they are. But I think in our case, risk is just walking home safely, for example. So yeah, we're really glad and proud to be able to be asked to endorse it.
As I understand it, and this app was in some way prompted by the tragedy that befell your family. Is that right?
Yeah, and that's obviously another heartfelt reason why we want it to be as successful as it deserves to be, and actually must be. It's students in Nottingham, and I can't tell you how many. It's not just parents that contact me and continue to. It's also students that contact me, and how desperately sad and how desperately sorry they are for what happened, but also how desperately concerned they are for their own safety. I know how much this impacted the community of students in Nottingham, actually the wider city of residents as well. And so the fact that these guys have brought it from the heart of that tragedy, from that city, resonates, and maybe it's a bit of karma. And so I'm going to do all I can with what voice I've got and what energy I've got where I can to make sure it's as visible as it can be.
Are there any specific concerns that students bring to you about their safety, about perceived dangers in the city and other cities?
I think what it is it's the danger of the unknown that's the risk, isn't it? We can all vaccinate, medicate ourselves. We can create our own personal surroundings to be safe. We can drive as safely as possible. We can try to avoid accidents as often as possible. But what we can't do is mitigate those risks of, like happened in our case, an individual waiting in prey in an area, used by students, widely used by students that you would think were safe. And I think it wasn't. And I don't know for a second if having this in operation would have saved Barney and Grace's life. But one part of this app is that it's a real time. It's sort of avoiding, what do they call it now? I think what do they say? Sketchy locations, which I think is it's a really good word. It's student powered safety. So sketchy locations, it makes you visible to your friends, to your parents, your guardians, and it just enables you to put an extra layer in, because you can't avoid these awful things happening, because there are awful people out there and awful things do happen. But what you can do is mitigate as much as possible. And I think the only way that this app would be successful is by being used and by being the main tool that all students go to, because there's safety in numbers, and it doesn't have to be physically safety in numbers. I think it's safety in numbers Nottingham alone, I think, what is it, 40,000 students in that city alone. You replicate that around the country and think how many, how many there are, and how big a voice that community would have. And I think, managed and policed properly and responsibly and considered as this has been done, I think I think every single university and college must, without exception, endorse it. If not, I'd like them to tell me why they wouldn't.
I would want to.
I didn't mean to sound threatening. I just needed to do it.
No, I wasn't trying to hear it all.
Well, take it as a compliment, no, but yeah.
I mean it as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
I would have asked if you think this app might have made a difference for Barney, which you've answered. But I guess what I'd ask instead is, would you have encouraged Barney to get this app if he was setting off to uni now? And is your other son considering university or higher education? Have you had that conversation?
Yes and yes. What I would say in context, which relates back to my previous point with regards to the institutions themselves, is, these are young people, these are adults going in their 18, 19, 20, when they go off to university. So yes, they're living on their own, sometimes for the first time, and making their own independent choices. But also what happens, especially as a parent of teenagers, as every parent around the land will know, that you can give advice, you can say, do this, don't do that. Sometimes they listen. Often you particularly met with a bit of a grunt and an eye rolling. Oh, I already know. So I understand that, and yes, of course we'd endorse it, and I think every single parent would endorse it, and it'd make them feel safer as well. But it's about the student making the choice to download and use this app, and it's free. And I think that they have to know about it. And I think the fundamental time for that to happen is that first time when you're there, you're in your halls, you're in wherever you're staying. Even if you're there and you're not a resident student, you're traveling each day, I think you still have all of your welcome activities, Freshers Week and the like. And I think that's the time this needs to be spoken about and endorsed. But the more it's used, the more popular it will be, and it will be part of the conversation and an expectation. Like the apps you use for when you're choosing which university you want to go to. I'm not endorsing any in particular, but I mean, Unifrog is one I know that Barney uses, and Charlie, who is planning to go either next year or the year after, is using. And it's that go-to, isn't it? And that's how we, back in my day, when you're looking for university, it was a very, very different process. Whereas now everything is it's all still the same information. It's just accessible differently. And I think this is the case with this app. So, I'll be making sure. I mean, Charlie knows about it already because the Barnaby Webber Foundation are fully endorsing it. But I was thinking about this. I think, as well as talking to the universities, that it would be a good opportunity to talk to the sixth form colleges and the schools with sixth forms, like Taunton School, where Charlie is at the moment. We've just been in and had a parents' breakfast meeting about next steps for the year 13s going into further education and what they're going to do. And actually thinking about it, there were lots of questions about getting them to study, whether they should have their phones in their room. I also think that we should be looking a bit further ahead and saying, well, think about what happens when they're there and how you're going to feel. And at some point, I think that process would make the students aware of it, make the parents aware of it. So it's part of the conversation, and it's just I need to download that and I'm going to use that. And it's just sharing, and it's never ever going to eradicate risks. Would never say that. But what it will do is it'll put an extra layer in, a bit like a lot of the Find My Friend type apps and things that are out there at the moment, but this goes beyond that. And I think that's the key crucial difference.
How difficult is it letting another son, Charlie, go off to university? Does this app make that any easier for you? Are there any conditions that you're thinking of setting for him, to let him go? Would this app be one of them, for example?
I think I joke with Charlie to say, he's lucky he's allowed out of the garden. But we made an active decision after this happened to us that we cannot and must not prevent him from having his life, his normal life. And so we've tried, and it is really hard. And we do try to say to him, please let us know what you're doing. We're not pestering you. Just let us know. We won't worry. Sometimes he remembers, most of the time he doesn't. And so I'm sure that echoes with many parents. And we'll be having the conversation definitely about using this. He's probably more aware than most of risks. What I would say though is that, young people, not even just young people, but people can be at risk anywhere. It doesn't have to be university. It's, things happen all over in towns and cities and villages. So the more that we can do, the better. And again, I think it comes down to awareness and usage. Therefore, you've got the safety app and you've got the safety in numbers. That's what I think anyway. From a mum's perspective, that's all. That's the only way I can speak. Genuinely that's the only thing I think I can speak with any authority about is me being a mum, not me being a parent necessarily, me being a mum, and just how I try to do things and how I see things.
That's linking on to the last thing I was going to ask you, Emma, which is, I think really, as well as any parent alive, that there are things you can't protect your children from that you wouldn't ever expect to happen. And maybe that's one of the key things this app helps with, because to be honest, I feel left behind by a lot of this. You talking about apps to apply for university, that didn't exist when I was applying for university. Everything changes, and maybe actually having a community of young people cooperating in some way to keep themselves safe is the best thing, because I don't think we always do know the risks and the hazards and the pitfalls that are perhaps in their path.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting to say that. I just assumed, Luke, being the young whippersnapper that you are, that you would have used all of that stuff. But the age that we live in is moving on at such rapid pace, isn't it? And how we communicate, it's sometimes it's good and it's bad how we communicate. But I think the very good part of it is that we can communicate widely, and instantly. And so I don't know if someone or something's a bit dodgy. We now know all these awful anecdotal stories about this individual who'd been prowling around and stalking and doing all sorts of things in this city. Had that been made knowledge, within these groups? Who knows? Made different choices. Which way you walk home and at what time? I don't know. But all I do know is that if you can only try, and by using this, it can help a little. It could potentially save a tragedy happening again, and that's enough, and that's what we've got to focus on.
One very, very last thing, another cheat question. Are you proud through your work, through the foundation's work, that this app can sort of form part of Barney's legacy? Because it's not tangential. It is completely in line with what's happened so far.
Yeah, I feel very proud to be asked to endorse something like this. I feel desperately heartbroken that it was because of our circumstances that it initiated the concept. I'm enormously proud of just how this student community that I've encountered anywhere and everywhere across the country have responded, and how immensely affected they were by this. And so I'm proud that they are listening, and that there is a want and a need for change. And I am proud that for what we're doing, and it's taking everything that we've got to try and address all of the failures and support, and also do some positives and support things like this. But I'm proud that will be a legacy in his name, because it can be easily forgotten. And I'm super proud of his brother and everything that Charlie's, the resilience that he's shown over the last couple of years. So yeah, we've got to, I suppose it's such a tragedy, but if we can make some positive come out of it and make it count and change, then yeah, we'll take that.
Anything else you wanted to add, Aaron?
No. Are you doing Movember?
Yeah, I've got the calendar on. No.
It's September, right?
Yes, apparently my girlfriend likes it, but maybe I'll hit stop before I tell you anything more about that.
You could be like your World War One trench.
I'm taking all this as a compliment.
Very nice. It's very dapper. But yeah.
Thank you, Emma.
Anyway, no, it's
Yeah,
fine. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, you too. Love to the family. I hope you're doing all okay.
Yeah, we'll be in touch about other stuff soon.
Yes, all right. I'll keep an eye out for that. Thanks, Emma.
Cheers,
All right,
Dan.
thank
Cheers.
you all.
Bye.
Cheers.